rivalry game at Louisville. Then they get a couple of easier teams at home, Kent State, followed by Western Kentucky. Then they travel to Florida, followed by home games against South Carolina and Mississippi State. Then traveling to Arkansas, followed by a home game against Georgia. Then a road trip to Missouri, followed by 2 home games against Vanderbilt and Samford. And, of course, they finish up against Tennessee in Knoxville. So certainly
I think they could beat Missouri.
Okay.
I think they just match up pretty well with them. But everybody else, it kind of goes chalk. I probably have them winning 4 games this year. What do you think?
I got 3 wins. Kent State, Western Kentucky, and Samford. The games you got to win. Other than that, I don't know.
There's always one surprise team, and it might be Kentucky. I do like Joker Phillips as a coach. I think he's a really smart defensive coach, but I think his offense shows that he doesn't really know too much about it, maybe can't recruit at that level. He needs an offensive coordinator, but who knows? Maybe he turns the defense around in the offense. They do have a lot of speed on offense, so if they can make a couple of big plays and play good defense, they've got a chance.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Joker Phillips is gone maybe by the Vanderbilt game. 3 games to go in the season.
If they only have 2 or 3 wins at that point, then most definitely he could be gone.
Yeah. Any ideas where they would look next?
With Kentucky, you're just kind of getting whoever you can get, whoever's desperate enough to come there.
Can I throw out a name?
Go ahead.
Bobby Petrino, do you think?
No. I don't think Petrino would go there.
Really? You don't think he would?
I don't think he would because look at you. We just talked about depth. He's got nothing on offense.
Yeah, but where else is he going to go? I mean, do you think if he waits longer, he can get back to a better school?
I think if he maybe goes to a Division II school, waits it out just maybe a couple of years, and lets everybody forget and get desperate again for another coach, I think he can get another high-profile job.
So what you're saying is UNA should hire Bobby Petrino?
UNA might need to start looking.
That would be fun to watch.
I would go watch that
I would
game.
drive over to Florence to watch those for sure.
But not on a motorcycle.
No, not on a motorcycle and not with anybody other than my wife.
That is correct.
All right, let's move on to kind of the opposite end of the spectrum here. Let's talk about the LSU Tigers,
who just got voted #1 in today's coaches poll.
Yeah, it's kind of been a 2-horse race for the 3-horse race maybe for the #1 spot. LSU, Alabama, USC, kind of feeling the love.
Which we don't count USC.
Right,
so.
right. But LSU is obviously pretty loaded. They got depth, they got playmakers, they got all kinds of names you recognize. But I want to start with the big question mark for them, and it's been the question mark for the past couple of years. Quarterback.
What do they do? They just got a new quarterback. Do you want to talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about Zach Mettenberger. He came in at Georgia in the same class as Aaron Murray. They were competing against each other for the starting job. Zach Mettenberger actually beat out Aaron Murray in, I believe, spring practice at least. I don't know.
He was slated to be the starter.
Yeah, he was going to be the starter, got into some trouble, ended up getting kicked off the team, went to junior college, and now finds himself here at LSU. He was actually on the team at LSU last year, and I believe he was fully eligible to play last year.
He was their 3rd quarterbacking option, but between Jordan Jefferson, they trusted Jordan Jefferson too much last year.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling to me that Zach Mettenberger didn't at least get a look in the national championship game. I'm not sure if he was taking a redshirt year last year. Maybe that was the case. If not, that's kind of an indefensible move. But to me, the question just keeps cropping up in my head. If Zach Mettenberger was not good enough to beat out Jordan Jefferson or at least Jarrett Lee,
right,
is he really the answer? I mean, is he really going to get that much better?
I do think that at one time he did have the talent that LSU needed. I don't know if he still has it. If he doesn't have it outside of Mettenberger, you're looking. I mean, you don't slim pickings. You don't have anybody who's tested. LSU doesn't really have anybody on the roster that they want to throw in there. I mean, you've got Rivers, who's the brother of the San Diego Charger NFL quarterback now, Phillip Rivers.
That's true.
I think his name's Austin Rivers. They just got the quarterback Bolden, who was the backup at Penn State last year. But really, you're just looking at another Jordan Jefferson in Bolden. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. If Mettenberger doesn't work out, you've got nowhere to run.
Well, the good thing for LSU's offense is that their offensive line is very, very strong. A lot of experience there, 4 returning starters. And when you add to that the fact that LSU has about 4 different types of tailbacks
Right.
that they can throw at you that really change things up, that's going to take a lot of the pressure off of the passing game. But as we saw in the national championship game last year, that's not enough to be truly elite teams.
And not only that, they didn't run the ball last year. It was baffling watching LSU. You know that they're weak at quarterback, and they just kept lining up and passing the ball. Now, I don't understand why they don't come out for the first 3 quarters and run the ball at least 3 times every possession, and then start play action in the 4th quarter. That just baffled me the whole game.
Yeah, obviously LSU, not as much name recognition this year with the wide receivers. They lost Ruben Randall to the NFL draft, but still have a couple good guys, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. I don't think they're going to be hurting there.
No.
LSU always seems to be pretty strong with the wide receivers.
If they have nothing else, they'll always have athletes.
Yeah, so offense looking pretty decent. Quarterback definitely a question mark, but the real strength of the LSU team is their defense.
Of course. I mean, so many returning starters. They'll probably have 2 or 3 All-Americans on their starting defense this year. Between Sam Montgomery, Tyrann Mathieu, Eric Reed, Anthony Johnson, they just have so many guys coming back. And even the reserves coming in, they were all 3, 4, maybe 5-star recruits coming into LSU. They're going to be good on defense.
Absolutely. I would say that LSU probably has one of the best, if not the best, defensive lines in the country. Secondary, always very strong for them.
Definitely elite.
But the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu,
Right.
I think that guy's overrated.
He's definitely overrated if you want to look at a pure safety.
Right.
But what he does and what his defense allows him to do is to take chances on plays.
That's true.
He doesn't necessarily make all the tackles or make all the breakups, but he does create turnovers. He intercepts the ball. He's in the right place. He strips the ball extremely well, and he is an underrated pass rusher. When they brought him on a blitz, he got to the quarterback more often than not. Now, he's got a lot of things that make him an odd safety. He's not a prototypical NFL safety, and I don't think that he really has the weight to make the big tackles, but he does do other things on the field.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some off-the-field stuff. Of course, you always have to throw Les Miles into the mix. What kind of effect he has one way or another on the team.
I always say Les Miles is good for at least 1 loss a year.
That's true. That's definitely true. And, you heard rumors after that national championship game that there might be some kind of unrest or some type of locker room problem. Do you give any credence to that kind of thing?
Not really. You won't be able to tell anything like that until the season starts, but I think locker room problems are greatly blown out of proportion. Even when there are rifts in the locker room, once you hit the field, it typically doesn't matter. It has to be something pretty awful for that to happen. And even though you might not like the coach, even though you might not understand why he does it, everybody still respects the coach. I mean, you're still going to do what he says whether you really like it or not, because he can just take you off the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I kind of have a feeling that if there were some of those types of issues, they might have been centered around Jordan Jefferson, and he's
Most
gone
definitely.
now.
Right.
So,
I think a lot of your issues left with Jordan Jefferson.
yeah, so let's take a look at their schedule here. They start off with a nice little warm-up game against North Texas. Then they have a non-conference against Washington at home. Another game against Idaho at home after that. Maybe the first real test, they have to travel to Jordan-Hare Stadium to play Auburn. Then they get Towson at home, travel to Florida, followed by South Carolina at home. Then they go to Texas A&M. Then that big rematch with Alabama at home on November 3rd, followed by Mississippi State at home the week after, then Ole Miss at home, and finally followed by Arkansas at Arkansas. So, decently tough slate.
I think it's a pretty good schedule. they've got a really, really good chance to do well with this schedule. I think they're better than at least 85% of who they play. I just have a problem with LSU because they never show up to all their games. I really think LSU is going to lose a game in here that nobody expects them to lose. I think it's going to make it interesting as we go down the stretch because I really believe they're only going to have one loss going to the end of the year. But it's going to be against a team that nobody expects, and I think it's going to hurt their chances for playing the national championship game.
I agree. I think the way the schedule sets up for them is good as far as the order. They got a couple weeks to get going. Then they have that game at Auburn, but one part of me wants to say Auburn would have a chance in that game. But if you got to open up on the road in the SEC, that's not the worst place they could possibly do it. So that works well for them. The latter part of the schedule might be a little bit tougher. Alabama is sandwiched between Texas A&M and Mississippi State.
With Arkansas to end.
Yeah, with Arkansas to end and South Carolina 2 weeks before. So that might be a place to trip up. But I'm going to predict a loss that might surprise you here. I think that they will only lose one game. I think it's going to be Florida. I just maybe kind of a hunch with that one, but that's kind of before their big run starts. After Florida, they play South Carolina, then at Texas A&M, then Alabama, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas. So that's like the first one in line. It's on the road. Maybe they're looking ahead a little bit to South Carolina. That's probably about the start of the season where, they're 5-0 at that point. Alabama's 5-0. They start thinking about that one. I don't know. I think it's possible.
That's a pretty good pick. I almost took Florida. However, I saw that they have a little powder puff game with Townsend right before it.
It's true.
I think that Florida's going to give them a run for their money, but I think they escape like LSU always does with bad clock management and getting lucky at the end of the game. But I think that escape is not going to help them against South Carolina, who's going to put all their chips on the table. I think South Carolina takes them down that next week.
So you think they beat Alabama, though?
I think they beat Alabama. I think they're just more of a complete team than Alabama is this year.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good game to watch, depending on what part of the country you're from. Big Ten people will probably say it's terrible, but
Big Ten people can get over it.
It'll be a good game to watch, definitely. So LSU looking at 11-1. I don't want to give too much of. Well, I guess we kind of have spoiled this now, but I really don't think there's going to be an undefeated team out of the SEC this year.
Not out of the SEC. I think the SEC overall is probably the best that it has been maybe in 5-10 years. I mean, from top to bottom, they're more equal, and I think they're just going to beat up on each other.
Yeah, and we've kind of been predicting as such. We've had a lot of teams that are kind of in that 8-4, 9-3 range, just because it seems like there is a lot of parity in the SEC this year.
Do you think that's going to prevent an SEC team from being in the national championship game?
I don't know. It kind of depends on what else is out there. Let's predict, for instance, if USC goes undefeated, I think they're in for sure.
They're definitely in.
I don't know who else is up there. I could see
maybe a Florida State with an easier schedule.
Yeah, the team that jumps out to me is Wisconsin.
Wisconsin could.
I think if they went undefeated, I think that they would probably jump a one-loss SEC team.
As long as they're healthy. Did you see what happened to their running back this week?
Yeah, that's a little strange.
He was attacked by 5 people. Of course, he was out at 2:30 in the morning, but they say it was an unprovoked attack, that his wallet and phone were stolen, so we just hope that he's okay.
Yeah.
But Wisconsin's a neat one. I haven't thought of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I could just – that would be a tough choice, I think. Wisconsin undefeated versus a one-loss
LSU.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's why we got the playoff now.
That's right. In 2014.
Yeah, but hey, don't get mad at me if that scenario happens. I'm just saying. It could. So.
Just because you're an oracle, don't get mad at you.
I did predict Auburn's undefeated season.
That is true, and I will continue to hear about that until the end of time.
People just don't realize the gift. So speaking of gifts, we're going to give you a quick commercial break here. On the other side, we'll be back with our special guest, friend of the show, Mississippi State alum Garrett, to help us break down the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We'll catch you on the other side here.
We told him he cannot bring his cowbell.
No, cowbell's not allowed on outputting our coverage, but you know how those Mississippi State fans usually follow the rules. So
exactly.
We'll see. All right, we'll be right back here on the other side.
Hello. Hi. Do you want to go to a party with me?
No, the game's on.